Pretend that you're a moderator, community manager, or administrator and your community asks you to solve a problem. The problem is that they're accusing one or more members of the community of trolling or of being a troll, and they'd like you to get them to stop. How do you deal with this? First, you need to understand what trolling is. The escapist seems to define trolling as baiting other users to respond aggressively. The old GameFAQs terms of use defines trolling as messages intended solely to annoy and or offend other users. Urban Dictionary defines it as the deliberate act of making comments with the intent to provoke an emotional knee-jerk reaction. Wikipedia says a troll is someone who starts flame wars or intentionally upsets people on the internet. Reset Era says that a troll is someone who posts with the intention of provoking a negative response from other members. All these definitions share a common thread: intent. A troll is someone who purposefully and maliciously intends to annoy, upset, or provoke other users. Let's contrast this with someone who innocently posts something that ends up upsetting others. Since you're the mod now, you're going to have to try to distinguish whether or not a post was intended to annoy others or not. It's not whether or not the post annoyed someone else or provoked someone else, it's whether or not the user intended for this to happen. To wit, Reset Era's rules also say that trolling is often disingenuous, but posting your honest opinion can still be trolling if you do so with the intent to inflame. So how do you gauge a person's intent? That's complicated, and we'll get back to that. Urban Dictionary's definition explicitly mentions controversial comments. What is a controversial comment? Let's say that there's a forum for coffee enthusiasts, and a user goes in and starts talking about how much he likes Starbucks. That user would probably be accused of trolling because what they said would be considered a controversial comment. These coffee enthusiasts hate Starbucks. To them, Starbucks is just trash and it soils the reputation of what good coffee actually is. Or at least that's their opinion. To them, the person who posts that they like Starbucks is just a troll, and they know that Starbucks is a touchy subject and that that user is just intentionally coming to them and trying to annoy them by pretending to like that disgusting swill. On the other hand, millions of people love Starbucks. It's not a widely held belief that Starbucks is gross, it's just inside of these enthusiasts' forums. That's the prevailing opinion, that Starbucks is gross. In the real world, outside of this enthusiast forums, if you were to go up to a random person on the street and ask them if they liked Starbucks, they would probably say yes. Saying I like Starbucks would not be considered a controversial comment. So the point of this example is to demonstrate that whether or not a subject is controversial depends on the context, the user demographics, as well as the stated purpose of the site. Whether or not the user is trolling depends on what opinions the users or moderators have, generally speaking. If a user base is extreme or fringe in their opinions, then simply expressing an opinion that would be considered normal in other circles would be considered controversial here, and therefore trolling in this context, and vice versa. They would think that a user is there to intentionally annoy them by stating an opinion that is, to them, unreasonable. So if we can have opinions that are uncontroversial to some people but controversial to others, how are you, the moderator, supposed to make a decision? Let's consider this issue of context in more detail. Let's say someone posts something saying Nintendo sucks and they make bad games. Is that trolling? What if this user posts that on the Nintendo fan club board, meant for people to gush about the positive things that Nintendo is doing? Here we have a user coming into a clearly defined area full of a certain demographic and expressing a negative opinion about something that this demographic loves. In this context, is that trolling? What if that same user posts the same message in the general gaming board or even in the Nintendo hate club board? Is it possible that the same message can be seen as both trolling and acceptable depending on where it's posted? You might say, come on, these are easy questions and they have easy, obvious answers. Yes, of course it's trolling to go and talk smack in the Nintendo fan club board, and no, it wouldn't be trolling to post this elsewhere. You might say that this clearly falls under the GameFAQs definition of provoking fans of a particular system or game, especially on boards or topics dedicated to that system or game. However, that comes with its own problems. Think about how people can abuse this system. For example, let's say that I create a topic saying PlayStation 2 was the greatest console ever, and someone enters my topic and disagrees with me. Does this fail the going against the clear nature of a topic and provoking fans of a particular system tests? Is this a deliberate act of making a controversial comment and trying to provoke a fight or argument? I have clearly stated that I'm a PS2 fan and I just wanted to gush about my favorite consoles, so for someone to come into my topic and talk smack about my favorite thing must clearly be provoking an argument and trying to annoy me, right? Have you just set the precedent that nobody can ever disagree with anybody ever again, because to do so is trolling? You might say, no, that's going way too far. People can still disagree with each other. Well, you would have to explain how that's possible. How can people disagree with each other without it being seen as trolling? Where do you draw the line between simple disagreement and provoking an argument or annoying someone? It seems like for most systems of moderation, the key to distinguishing one or the other is intent. A moderator has to try to discern whether or not a person is purposefully trying to upset the other person or if it's just a genuine disagreement. So, how would you do that? Since nobody could read minds, how do you know for sure what the person's intent is? Let's finally answer this question. Here are the ways to tell whether or not a person is trolling. 1. The suspected user admits it. This is obviously going to be very unlikely. A user who is truly malicious isn't going to admit to breaking the rules, but maybe they will. Maybe the user will state as much in a post or be asked about it by another user and then reply in the affirmative. Unlikely, yes, but not outside the realm of possibility. Number 2. The suspect could be caught in a lie. A user could pretend to hold an opinion that they don't really have or have credentials that they haven't earned. They could be lying about having had certain life experiences in order to annoy the other person or to win an argument. For example, they could pretend to be a doctor and give fake advice or misleading information. Or someone who pretends to be part of a group that he is actually in disagreement with. He could attempt to make them look bad or sway them from the inside, as it were. If you can catch a user in a lie, then that could be taken as evidence of trolling. If, for example, a user claims to be a 16-year-old girl in one post and then a yacht-owning medical doctor in another post, then that's a pretty good indication that the user is just a troll. But you have to be careful with this. You have to find things that are definite lies, not things you think are lies. For example, you could have a user that claims to be black and claims that Trump was the greatest president ever. Would you think that this user is lying about either of those things? Either his race or his political stance? If you can't tell by my voice, I'm black. I've been accused of lying about my race based on some of the opinions that I've shared. If you're going to accuse a user of lying, you better have an airtight case. And those are the only two ways. Sorry if that was anticlimactic, but that's pretty much it. Any other way involves mind reading, something you cannot do, and therefore it's impossible to know for sure what a user's intent is. Disagreeing with other users doesn't necessarily make them a troll, no matter how often they do it. It could just be that they have opinions. You wouldn't want to make disagreement against the rules, maybe you would. If you try to catch trolls based on how often or how strongly they disagree, you're essentially just doing that, making disagreement against the rules. You think that these two methods of catching trolls was too unreliable to rely on? Either they admit it or you catch them in a lie, and you'd rather just go with your gut and try to suss out a troll that way. Hold on, there's another solution. How about, instead of trying to discern intent, you focus on the actions instead? Think about the coffee example again. What rules can you make to prevent this Starbucks-loving user from coming in and upsetting everyone? You could make it clear that the forum is for people to discuss coffee other than Starbucks, and that Starbucks is just too low quality to merit discussion. That might seem elitist or snobby, opinionated, but it's a coffee enthusiast forum. That's what you are anyway, so just be upfront about it. Or you could say that opinions need to be backed up by facts. So a user couldn't just post, "I love Starbucks, to me it tastes the best." They would have to supplement that with results from a taste test competition or something. Anything. The downside of this is that it raises the amount of effort that one would have to put into their posts before they can actually post them. That barrier to entry sort of might turn people off and lower activity on your site. On the other hand, it could raise the reputation of your site as being the place to go to solid, well-researched answers and knowledge about coffee. Subreddits do this. Subreddits like Science and Ask Historians and sites on the Stack Exchange network work this way. And for them, it works. It might not work for a normal general discussion forum, but it has its uses. Another option is that you could actually make it so that disagreement isn't allowed, as if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. That way, the user could say his piece about Starbucks, and nobody would be allowed to argue with him. Users might still be annoyed and be fighting back the urge to furiously disagree with him, but it won't result in an argument. Ideally, they would just go and talk about the coffee they do enjoyed and ignore the Starbucks guy. This doesn't apply to the coffee forums example, but you could make a rule that disallows lying or spreading false information. Of course, the part that distinguishes a lie from a simple mistake is that the person making the claim knows it's false, so again, intent needs to be factored in. But by explicitly making it against the rules, you can directly punish it and catch more trolls than you would by otherwise trying to read minds. I know of a case, because this happened to me, that a user was insisting that a politician said something that they clearly didn't say. I showed this user the official transcript and demonstrated that this politician never said what they are being accused of saying. But this other user still insisted that they were right, accused me of ignoring the transcript, accused me of acting of bad faith, of gaslighting, strawmanning, moving goalposts, lying, and ignoring facts. At this point, you, the moderator, might step in, review the original claim, review our arguments and the evidence we each present, and then make a decision that one of us is lying and then punish that user. Of course, you wouldn't want to be the person that decides what truth is, but you would at least make sure that the participants in an argument have evidence backing them up. If a troll is making well-reasoned, well-researched arguments and using actual facts and evidence to prove his points, then what are they doing wrong? The downside of this approach is that it takes a lot of time and effort on the part of you, the moderator, to sift through all this information. Maybe it wouldn't be feasible to do as your site grows. And you just can't spend hours of your volunteer time just going through arguments between users looking for lies or unresearched arguments. But maybe if your site is small enough, or if your subject matter is focused enough, for example, the coffee, maybe you can make it work. Again, look at sites like Ask Historians or Science or anything on the Stack Exchange network. They all require their participants to have done their research and present evidence for their claims. Here's another easy thing you can do to cut down on the number of trolls. Just disallow all off-topic conversation in a thread and be strict about enforcing it. That way threads won't be getting derailed. You could probably think of more rules, better rules, or adjustments to these rules, but the point is to stop trolls by taking away their tools. Trolls may seek to derail threads, so take away the tool of derailment by disallowing off-topic discussion. Trolls may lie, so take away the tool of lying by making them prove the things that they say. Take away the tool of disagreement by disallowing disagreement entirely, if that's what you want to do for your forums. Focus on the actions that trolls take, not something so unknowable like intent. I think a lot of these sites, including the ones whose definitions I've quoted, are trying to stop trolling from the wrong angle. Instead of trying to punish and discern intent, they should be modifying their rules to disallow the specific actions that they want to discourage. Disarm the troll by taking away his tools. My suggestion on how to catch a troll would be stop trying to catch trolls. Just make the trolling impossible by taking away their tools. You can't read minds, so don't even try. If you do try, you'll end up punishing innocent people for doing something as simple as sharing their sincerely held beliefs. You can also consider doing what Stack Exchange used to do in its code of conduct. Assume good intent. If you want fewer flame wars, start by encouraging people to not react badly. Start by making it a requirement that people should assume good intentions and act as if each user is a potential friend, not a potential enemy. Assume that the person criticizing your small batch burlap sack Sumatran blend is doing it because they care and that they want you to have the best coffee experience, not because they want to ruin your day. If someone says that they think Starbucks is better, don't assume that they're just pretending to like that boiled garbage. Maybe consider asking if there's anything you can do to improve your Starbucks experience. You'll have fewer fights if you make it a violation to escalate things into a fight in the first place. The troll doesn't usually escalate things, the innocent users do by reacting to the troll's provocation. If you want a diverse group of users to be able to disagree, especially if you allow them to discuss politics or religion, disagreements will happen and users will accuse others of trolling, especially across the ideological or political aisles. Your job as moderator is not to try to discern intentions, but to facilitate civil discussion by making sure people are following the rules. Your focus should be on making and enforcing rules that, if these rules are followed, will ensure that all users are civil. Take away the tools that trolls use. Create better rules that you can enforce without relying on the ability to read minds. Rules that foster the community and the level of discourse that you want to see. Hey, if anyone wants me to be their community manager because I just blew your mind with my great ideas, you know how to reach me.